American soldiers versus British soldiers. This is going to be a showdown between two powerful countries. Some part of me thinks the British soldiers would be better. They'll be better soldiers. Though America probably has the better equipment, better machineries and all that. But for some reason, I just feel the British would be ahead in terms of individual soldier. You get what I'm saying? Like, due to the fact that they've been battle tested throughout history. So probably, I'm just going by that. I don't know. We will check it out in this video. Like the video, get the video out to more people. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. Let's get right into it.
It's 2025, and after a strange shift in geopolitics and world powers, the USA and the UK have found themselves going to war with each other. These longtime allies that once fought side by side in World War II in Afghanistan have become arch enemies fighting for global dominance. The rest of the world looks on in horror. But who will win? There's one fact that's hard to ignore. One side is larger than the other by a long way. The United States. Based on size alone.
So it's like America versus Britain, not America. Well, the title was American soldiers versus British soldiers. Okay.
The U.S. military is the clear winner. It boasts over 1.4 million personnel, compared with a measly 149,000 in the UK. That might not guarantee success if the whole U.S. Army consists of untrained airheads and idiots, but it doesn't hurt. Especially when you consider the amount the U.S. spends. The American military budget is a huge $740 billion, compared with the UK's much smaller $49 billion. How cute. Money can't buy you everything in life, but it helps to win wars. But to be fair, both countries take their military spending seriously. In terms of GDP, the USA spends 3.4% on the military, and the UK spends around 1.7%. That figure won't help the Brits win a war, but it's something they can nurse their national egos with. So far, things aren't looking good for the Brits. They've been outnumbered and outspent. Let's see if they can turn things around with their equipment. As they say, it's not all about the size, it's about how you use it. Which country has the best weapons, gadgets, and vehicles? If we're
That's a lie, though.
talking about quantities, the USA gets an easy win here, as you'd expect. They spend far more on the military overall, so of course, they have more stuff. The UK only has 227 tanks compared to the USA's 8,370. As for armored vehicles, the UK has 4,673 and the USA has 41,760. Is the UK's lack of resources such a big deal? Experience shows us that yes it is. During the Afghanistan conflict in 2007, the British Army stationed in the south of the country had been finding it increasingly difficult to maintain peace over the last 3 years because of their lack of equipment. Guess who had to sweep in to save them? The Americans. The U.S. Brigadier General Lawrence Nicholson brought in 4,000 Marines with a new approach. Go big, go strong, go fast. The new forces weren't exactly successful in maintaining peace, as anyone familiar with the Kandahar massacre and the Maiwand district murders will know, but they were good at going big and going strong, which could give the U.S. an edge in battle. In Afghanistan, the British used Jackal vehicles, which are designed for maneuverability rather than protecting the person inside. The Americans had MRAPs, or mine-resistant ambush-protected vehicles. Although MRAP tanks are classified as light armored vehicles, they weigh a massive 14 to 18 tons and are a lot sturdier than the Jackals. Designed to withstand the improvised explosive devices that threatened troops during the Iraq and Afghanistan conflicts, they were much more effective at keeping the troops safe from danger than anything the Brits had. However, the U.S. Marines seem to have plenty of admiration for the Brits and what they achieved despite their lack of equipment. So that's something. One American Marine commented, "The biggest thing I noticed was the vehicles they drive. You guys are friggin' gutsy. I wouldn't get shot at in one of those." Does having more flimsy vehicles make the British the weak?
Oh man, that is so funny. So an American soldier, wait, is this actually a real quote? Seriously. That is so fucking funny. Like, I mean, I wouldn't like to be shot in that kind of tank. Seriously, like, oh man, is it that the British one is so inferior like that? I mean, I get that Britain can't really compete with the current real world powers right now because of the size of the country, obviously. Population, that also you have to consider that as well. And the size also affects their budgets, because if you don't have enough taxpayers, how are you going to be able to build all this and get all this equipment? So I get it. Maybe, okay, that explains it. But Man, it's a real far cry from that powerful British Empire.
Your side or just more badass. It depends on which way you look at it. Another difference between the British and US armies is their deployment of women on the front line. We don't want to say women are better or worse in the military than men, because that'd probably start a war in the comments section, so we'll let you decide, but it's definitely worth mentioning. In Afghanistan, the US Marines were shocked to see...
I mean, the answer is clear. I know people don't like saying all these things, but the answer is clear. It's just genetics, it's just biology. Nothing offensive about that. Both genders have their strengths, We are supposed to complement each other. This thing I see online all the time about men versus women, this versus... I just do not understand what is going on in the West these days, but whatever. I'm just here, suffering, in the stupid Nigerian government that I am. But some part of me feels like I would prefer you people's problems. That is the problems of discussing which gender or which person is stronger, or which gender deserves this and this and this, more than what I'm going through right now. So I guess everybody has their struggle, and that is the Western countries' struggle, and that is fine. But it's just something that I just need to sit down and look at. Like, is this really something to be arguing about? Men and women are different. We have our own strengths. No need for all these arguments.
Women wandering around shower blocks wrapped in nothing but a towel, with no cares in the world. The US does have women in the armed forces, but they aren't always allowed to be on the front line or live in close proximity to their male counterparts. In the UK, on the other hand, women are seen as equals. Revolutionary concept. Despite their surprise at the close working and living relationships between women and men in the British Army, professional soldiers they needed to take seriously. But could the initial shock be a trump card up the sleeves of the British? Anyway, time to get on to the important stuff. The real factors that determine the success of a military side. Who can handle the most alcohol? It's a contentious topic. The British are known for drinking more heavily, and they can start at a younger age, but the US soldiers might give them a run for their money. Around 40% of US soldiers indulge in binge drinking.
Man, no. Let me go and get myself. I'd like to know where I fit in with this, so let's see.
What does this have to do with the power of their militaries? Although drinking is a skill that might be impressive on a wild night out on the town, it's not a positive thing during combat. It's important for soldiers to keep their mental health stable over extended periods of combat.
Really?
The soldiers might use alcohol as a way of coping with difficult experiences they encounter.
If I were a soldier, I would be like this comment you just made. I'll probably use alcohol as a coping mechanism inside the violence that I am. Actually, I think I would perform better drinking alcohol, because at that point in time, you can die anytime, and with alcohol, I could probably be in that mindset that I don't really care at that point. I don't really care about my life. My mind is not here. I'm not thinking about the other serious things that may be going on in my life. I'm just high. I'm just ready for it. I'm ready to rumble. You get what I'm saying? So at that point in time, I'm like, woo! I hope I don't mistakenly shoot my fellow soldier.
During the military instead of talking about them. Over half of British servicemen and women drank at a level that could harm their health in 2018. Most likely to self-medicate from mental health conditions such as PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder. Similarly, alcohol as a coping mechanism is a huge problem among veterans. Wow, things just got dark. Back to a more lighthearted topic. You can't mention the drinking preferences of the British without mentioning their ultimate beverage of choice, tea. In contrast, the US prefers coffee. Does this affect the combat performance of either side? Time to find out. Many British tanks and armored vehicles...
This is a very fun video. I didn't think this video would be so fun for me. Like, I'm just picturing so many things in my brain. I'm just enjoying this shit.
Fitted with water boiling devices. Cube-shaped kettles enable the troops to boil water inside the protection of a tank and drink tea to their heart's content. Maybe that's why the British were willing to sacrifice the sturdiness of their vehicles in Afghanistan. This might seem a bit eccentric, not to mention pointless, but hear us out. During World War II, a large number of fatalities were caused by crew members having to leave the safety of their tanks when they needed a break. There was only one reasonable solution: let them make a brew inside the tank. That way, the troops were less of a target for enemy fire. 10 out of 10 for ingenuity. Who knows, maybe this could be their secret weapon in a future war. There's nothing like a fresh brew to keep an army going. But don't discount the Americans, because they also seem to recognize the importance of a lovely warm beverage. The U.S. Army aims to ensure coffee is always available to its soldiers, whether in ration packs or at garrisons. Sometimes there are shortages, so improvisation comes into play to give the soldiers their daily fix. During the Korean War, some soldiers indulged in sock coffee filtered using a sock. Or, if the worst comes to worst, they just mix instant coffee granules with cold water and down it like a shot of vodka. Lovely. It's worth it to have that caffeine coursing through your veins ready for battle. Clearly, both sides have their vices, but we'll have to give the Brits the edge on this one, based purely on the fact that they're less likely to drop dead from swallowing some questionable feet fungi. In this capitalist world, soldiers aren't just fighting for their national pride or a noble cause. They also want to receive their paycheck at the end of it all. The draft ended in 1973 after the Vietnam War in the USA, making the Army a professional, career-oriented force. In the British Army, the national service officially ended in 1960, and it transformed into a professional army in 1963. So who gets the fattest check? New recruits in the British Army start on a salary of £15,985 a year in training, soon going up to $20,400 when becoming a private. After a few years, if they can reach the rank of sergeant, the salary will go up to £35,853 a year. That's around $46,000. In the U.S. Army, new recruits can expect to earn $24,512 a year as a private first class after initial training. A sergeant earns...
I have to say, these salaries are so low. I have to say this. Salaries. What's a sergeant in the US earning only 29,000? Is this a month? Okay, it has to be a year. A month is too much. I mean, I'm in support of soldiers, but even for me, that is too much. But $29,000 a year, that is just too small for a soldier. Like, these people are risking their lives for their country.
Anything up to $29,610 a year. So we have a clear winner here. Let's hope the Americans don't find out, or they could end up switching sides. Now that would be an interesting war. With so much money, you'd hope the British soldiers would go through a half-decent training program. Let's find out if that's the case. In the UK, most soldiers complete a 14-week common military syllabus, followed by specialist training for different trades and divisions. US soldiers train for slightly less time. They complete a 10-week basic combat training course, then complete more career-oriented training. Overall, both countries offer a similar...
See what I'm saying? I predicted at the beginning of the video that I believe the UK soldiers would be it would be better than the US soldiers individually. You know, when you are from a country that is supposed to be a world power country and you don't have enough population, the few that you have to train them very, very strongly. The US now don't have that problem because they have all this population. They have people trying to join the military and all that. So they don't really have that issues. You know, so they can, because they have the numbers. But a country that like the UK that still has this history of the British Empire hanging over their heads, the history of them being a powerful, strong country, most of their history, at least in the known history, it's, you know, they have to train each individual soldier very, very seriously for them to be able to compete.
Style of training based on fitness, discipline, and weaponry. It's hard to say that one country is definitively superior here, but there is one key difference: the age of the recruits. A U.S. soldier must be 17 to join the forces with parental consent, or 18 without the consent. Meanwhile, Brits can join at the age of 16 if they have parental consent, making the UK the only NATO country to recruit young people into its military at age 16. Crazy. It's a controversial policy, considering these recruits must remain in the army until they're 22, and they can't even vote or drink alcohol until they turn 18. With literal boys among them who might have joined the forces as a rash decision, could British soldiers be flakier and less mature than their US counterparts? Or is their youth just a testament to how tough they are? But this is just the beginning. Average soldiers might make up the bulk of the army, but what about the guys that are really well trained? We're talking about elite special forces. The British Army has the famous SAS, or Special Air Service. Founded during World War II, it's one of the oldest special forces and has the highest entry requirement of all British forces, with the motto, "Who dares wins." The SAS is respected and feared across the globe in equal measure. It's heavily involved in reconnaissance and counterterrorism, meaning most of their work is below the radar and people like us can't get too nosy about it. However, they do plenty of cool and hardcore stuff, like rescuing hostages. Not to be outdone, the US Army has the highly respected and admired Delta Force, also known as the 1st Special Forces Operation Detachment. Formed in 1977, it's known as one of the most secretive U.S. forces and specializes in counterterrorism and hostage rescue. Sounding familiar yet? Allegedly, the Delta Force was modeled on the British SAS. We want to give the Brits the point here for sheer originality, but it's not exactly good news for them if the Americans know the training secrets and operations of their elite forces. That's a rookie error if there ever was one, especially when there are way more U.S. soldiers and they have better equipment. What about the heads of the armies? The U.S. Army serves the government of the USA, making the President of the U.S. Commander-in-Chief. Meanwhile, the British Army serves Her Majesty the Queen as head of the armed forces, who is also...
Wait, I didn't know that. I absolutely did not know that. Guys, what the hell? Wait. When the UK is involved in a war, I thought it's the Prime Minister that gives the order. I had no idea that is the royal aspect of things that handle this thing. I thought the royal family is basically just like, a reminder for the British history and all that stuff. I didn't know that they had the power to that the commander-in-chief. Really? I had no idea. I'm serious. I'm not trying to act here like this is crazy. I didn't know that. I had zero idea. I didn't even have 10% idea or 20% idea. I had zero idea. I thought everything, most things that has to do with administration is controlled by the Prime Minister, not necessarily the royal family. I thought the royal family was just there, almost like a mascot. When I say, just as a reminder, I'm not using that in a bad way or in a disrespectful way. I'm saying in terms of people looking at them okay, these people are our prestigious, link to our past and things like that. That's how I used to look at the royal family, to be honest. I've never looked at the royal family as people that control the military. This is crazy.
Their commander-in-chief. Her Majesty the Queen Elizabeth is closely tied to the British military, having been a wife, mother, and even grandmother of individuals serving in the armed forces. During World War II, the Queen, who was then Princess Elizabeth, joined the Auxiliary Territorial Service herself and learned to maintain and drive military vehicles and ambulances. She even achieved the rank of Honorary Junior Commander while doing her part for the war effort. By comparison, the current U.S. president, as of this script's writing, claimed to suffer bone spurs when it was his time to serve his country. Points here for the badass monarch up to her elbow in Greece, fixing combat vehicles and serving her country. Overall, the British and American armies are matched fairly evenly in terms of their training and structure. It doesn't exactly come as a surprise, considering their histories are so closely linked. Realistically, the Americans would likely have the upper hand in any war against the Brits due to sheer manpower and weaponry. But let's hope the two sides can settle their differences over a cup of tea or coffee. Now,
I'm just going to say this, I get that in a real war, the US would probably defeat the UK. They have the manpower, they have the equipment, they have the money, they have everything to be able to defeat the UK. But I just don't I have this image in my head. I don't know, maybe part of it is because I was colonized by the British. I don't know, maybe I'm some person that has been oppressed to a point where I'm not even thinking straight. But I've not been oppressed. I'm just saying. I know some people will use that word to try to explain why I'm feeling this way. I just have a very, very high regard for the British when it comes to this thing. I don't know why. I just do. You guys could have seen it from my first video on this channel. I was always talking about how the British, don't fuck with them, man. Don't fuck with them. I've always had a very, very big regard for the British Empire, what they were able to achieve, good or bad, but what they were able to achieve was crazy. So it's something that I've always felt like, do the US really want to fight the British? Do they really want to do that? I don't think so. On paper, they're supposed to be able to level Britain if it comes to that, but do they really want to? Do they? I don't think so. Even if they have a conflict, they have a disagreement, or things really get to a point between US and Russia, I don't think the US would have the balls to actually declare war on the UK. I just don't think so. What do you guys think? This is just a very interesting topic, and this video a lot of it is about hypothetical situations. And I'm asking you guys this hypothetical question right now. Would the US actually have the balls to go against the UK? Even if on paper, they are better. Let's be real here. I mean, even a UK citizen would accept that. Even a British person would accept that. On paper, they are better. They have the equipment, they have the money, they have the population, they have everything over the British. So, but would the US actually have the balls to go against the UK or the British? I don't think so. In my opinion, I don't think so. What do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. I'll see you on the next one. Peace.